don't have any time for any
But
gossip
you know,
now.
obviously, when you talk about with negotiations, we didn't necessarily have on the same page, and so I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take my move, my break.
But you've been one of the few on the franchise that's given them so many other shows too.
Yeah, no, we're still gonna be working together. We got some other things coming.
Okay. So you just
I'm
want
still
to
a
do
part
that
of.
show.
I'm still part of the Bravo family.
Okay.
I still love them. They love me, but I decided that
hey guys, I wanted to do another video with regards to the Kandi Burruss situation and her saying that she is going to be leaving the Housewives of Atlanta, because I know, you know, there's been so many rumors. People have stated that she got fired, and now we know that Andy came out and said that she didn't get fired, which I thought was very odd because Andy normally don't come out and give any statements with regards to anybody's status. Usually the housewife will say what the status was, but I thought this situation was particularly interesting, just because Kandi wanted us to know that she had not been fired. And of course, it made me just want to dig deeper because it's really not that serious. I feel like Kandi, you know, at once upon a time, she had a lot of interesting things going on in her life. But at some point, not just Kandi, but the entire cast fell flat and the show became boring and it just wasn't fun to watch. And that was not definitely all on Kandi. But we know that there was a lot of information online with people saying that it was basically Kandi's time to leave the show. And I have to definitely agree. I feel like they need to get some fresh faces. But I wanted to speak specifically on the situation as to Kandi saying she wasn't fired. Now, I don't believe that she was fired, but this is what I want you guys to pay attention to. Kandi's been on this show for 14 seasons. So typically the housewife expect to get an increase in pay, right? Well, at this particular time, as you just heard in that video snippet of Kandi speaking with Jason Lee, she said that they could not come to terms, or basically they could not agree, and it just didn't work out. So she decided to leave the show. Okay, so just remember that, because what I want you guys to understand is the fact that they couldn't agree means that they were not giving her an increase, but more so a decrease. And think about it. The show has went to shit. So whatever she was making, either they couldn't, I'm sure they couldn't give her what she was making, especially if it's $2 million. And it is also being speculated that she was going to be a friend of the show. And I'm going to bring my receipts. So let's get into this next video clip that I have.
Tell me, what's the latest? How do you keep up? How do we keep up?
I'm not really keeping up right now. I'm not keeping up. I already said it, so I'll tell you. I decided I'm not coming back this year.
Why?
Well, it's been 14 seasons.
14?
Yeah, 14. And they allowed us to sit around for a little too long because they was making a decision. But during that time, I had started working on a lot of other things, and I got some nice big projects coming soon. So I'm super excited about those things. But it's not just that. It's just like, you know, after you really have time to think, and a friend of mine was like, why do you keep doing it? And I was like, well, I think because I've just been doing it so long, it just feels weird to think not to do it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a moment.
Okay, you just said take a break.
Well, no, I'm not coming back this year.
Ever.
Well, I would say, I don't want to say never, because it's still,
so in that
we're still going to do things together.
Clip, Kandi basically said she decided not to come back this year. And I want you guys to see how the stories are a little bit different, because that's not the story that she told Jason Lee. The story that she told Jason Lee was they couldn't agree, and obviously she decided to, hey, take off, which makes sense, because if I can't be paid the amount that I feel like I'm worth, and I feel like I can do other things, then of course I'm going to do those other things. But I want you guys to see how the stories are very different. And then I also want you guys to keep in mind how Andy came out Andy never does that. So I get it. They have a good relationship. You know, Kandi done a lot of mudslinging for them against Nene. So she is definitely teacher's pet, right, in this particular organization with Bravo. But in terms of was she fired, I don't feel like she was fired, but demoted. I feel like she was, in fact, demoted. And I'm going to bring you guys this final receipt, and then we're going to come back for commentary. You have to understand, guys, the fans rule. Although, you know, I've watched Real Housewives of Atlanta since season 1. Now, at some point, Kandi, she did give great story. Kandi gave great story. I won't say that she did not. But at some point, we get tired of seeing restaurants being open. You know, at that point, we're tired of seeing that. I mean, we love it, but we want to see something different. So we're looking for a little bit, you know, something different, something a little bit more. So I believe when the fans spoke about Kandi, they did say she was boring. Well, Kandi has not always been boring. She has some very interesting storylines. However, these last few years has not been that interesting. And then you guys got to understand, with Nene leaving, and then it seems like everybody on the show didn't have a, you know, a storyline that was relatable. And when I say relatable, when you are in your mid 40s and definitely older, you want to see something of substance. Nobody wants to see all of the fighting and the bickering from show after show after show. It gets tired. It gets redundant. These are middle-aged women, and if the only thing they can do is fight each other on the cast, it becomes boring. So fans started to complain. What I'm going to do next is I have another video clip that I'm going to show you, and it's going to break it down just a little bit deeper as to what I'm saying. So I want you guys to understand, no, she wasn't fired, demoted, definitely a possibility. No, it's not even a possibility. She said to Jason Lee in so many words, they couldn't agree. What does that actually mean? So let's get into this next video clip, and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
You should definitely go. Swear up and down, Carla, you didn't leave Atlanta Housewives. You got to let go. What? But I already talked about that, so I won't be going there. Where I will go is by saying, as an executive producer of reality shows, we as executives sometimes know when it's time to have the conversation. And the conversation isn't great. I never think it's surprising, though. But the conversation is never great when it's time for someone to leave, especially somebody who's been on the show for so long. And in this case, Kandi's been on the show since season 2. They're entering their 16th season, so that's 14. Kandi's been on the show for 14 years. That's a very long time. And the show has done wonders for her and her career and her personal life. She met her husband on set. So everything surrounding the show has been a huge benefit to her. So when you are an executive and you feel like it's time for someone to go, there is a conversation to be had. And I think just based on the fact that they did give her a contract, showed her that they do value her and that perhaps they wanted her to come back to give a final, hurrah to the show or to be on multiple seasons. I'm not going to get into her agreement. But they did ask her back. In what capacity? That's what she'll have to say to you guys. But at the end of the day, I think it was smart.
Okay, guys. So in wrapping and summing everything up, I wanted to bring up Carlos King, just brief snippet of what he had to say. And one of the things he had to say was, it's never easy to have the difficult conversation, especially with a cast member such as Kandi, who has been on the show since season 2. He said it's never easy to have the hard conversation. So I just want you guys to think about, what do you think the hard conversation is that Carlos is referencing when he says that? Carlos mentioned, Kandi being on the show for so long. Obviously, they do value her. He said that maybe they wanted her to come back for this last final and give some kind of goodbye. Now, this is what Carlos is saying. So I'm just saying what Carlos stated in that video snippet that I just showed you. I want you guys to kind of understand some things, that no, she wasn't fired, but it was definitely her time to go, and she was demoted, and they did not give her the money that she wanted. Kandi waited around for this very thing, the Real House of Atlanta. She has not been doing much because she stated she couldn't, because she didn't know when the show was going to take off. But then in this previous interview, she stated that the numbers didn't work out. So what is that telling you? So Carlos ends by stating Kandi was asked back, but he states in whatever capacity that she was asked to come back in is something that she would have to share. Okay, guys, this is when come on now. In what capacity? Well, what capacity would she be or not be asked to come back? She's been a housewife. So there's only 2 positions. You're either a main cast, which you're a housewife, or you're a friend of. So for Carlos to say in what capacity that she was asked to come back, she would need to share that, is a clear indication that she was demoted. They did not bring her back or did not ask her to come back in a main cast capacity. If you guys recall, all last season of Real Housewives of Atlanta, Kandi wasn't even there. So they paid her this big check. Obviously, they get paid per episode, but still, it's a nice check per episode. Kandi she wasn't fired, but she was not brought back making the type of money that she was making, nor did they give her an increase, nor was she a main cast. I mean, we can read through the lines here. And then Carlos ends by saying, in his thoughts, he think that it was best to leave. Well, would you rather leave your job, or would you rather be fired from your job? So she left at a high, because bringing her back, she was not going to be in that capacity. This would be like bringing her back as if the fans were elated to have her back. They didn't want Kandi back. Again, Kandi had a nice run on Housewives, but it came to an end, and that's just that. So all of this stuff that she's having Andy to do to say that she wasn't fired, no, she wasn't fired, but she's not being truthful either, because if you're going to have Andy involved, just be honest. And that's the part I don't like about Kandi. She always seems to try to make her situation better than it really is. Bravo has this show for money. If viewers are not watching, if people are not loving this show, they're going to start getting rid of people. Now we'll see what's going to happen with Kenya. If you guys can, if you pay or if you follow her or see, any of her interviews, she's now getting out doing a lot of acting, and she's saying, because it's something she wanted to do anyways. Well, none of those girls know if they're coming back. If so, they don't know in what capacity. And honestly, I don't want to get off the Kandi story, but Kenya has been fake with these fake storylines for so many years. I'm so over her. I'm over her. One thing I can say about Kandi, she did give us a story. Now, Kenya did at one point when she had the storyline about her mother, but then somewhere it got to be fake storylines every season, and I'm so over it. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know. We'll have a conversation. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you do enable your bell notifications so you do not miss out on a video.